Hello and welcome. Today we are going to understand the concept of stacks, functions, and local variables. I shall be using C++ as my programming language of choice, but there is no reason as to why you cannot use any other programming language to understand all of these concepts, because these are things that remain universally acceptable throughout all programming languages, generally. Apart from probably scripting languages, you might find some differences, but under the hood, this is what happens all the time. Alright, so let us try to understand what happens when you try to execute any program. The moment you try to execute any program, the operating system allocates it some amount of memory, okay? And let that be represented by this box. Okay, some amount of memory is allocated by the operating system. And this segment of memory, this entire region of memory has many different parts. Okay, we shall be focusing on two such parts. One of them is called the stack and the other is called the heap. Alright, now it has got other parts and those are used for other purposes, but let us draw our attention and focus to these two regions. So let us try to understand what happens the moment you try to execute a particular program. The moment you try to execute a program, the main function is called. And within this main function, you can do whatever you want, and you may end up calling some additional functions in the process of solving a problem, and then you end up finishing your program. Okay. So let us understand, before going into further detail, what a stack frame is. Okay, so stack is this section of memory, okay, and it grows in this direction. This heap grows in this direction. Now whenever you call a function, say f, whenever you call a function, it is allocated some memory from the stack so that the overall size of the stack grows this side, okay? And this region of memory that is allocated for the execution of this function is called a stack frame. Alright, that is what is a stack frame. So this, the first stack frame that is allocated, okay, belongs to the main function, obviously, because it is the first function that you call during the execution of your program. Okay, now more often than not, your function will contain some variable declarations within it, such as int a, and within this function also you've got int a, b, float x. Alright, all of these variables are nothing but memory locations that have been given the name a, b, x, and they contain some value within it. So where are these memory locations? That is a very natural question, and that is where this entire stack frame comes into the picture. Okay, let me erase this. So let us focus on the stack frame. Okay, and let us say that this function that we called is nothing but this function, this typical function. Okay, so it has got a, b, and x. This is of type float, this is of type int, and we see that it has been provided the stack frame for doing whatever it wants. So all the variables are actually given memory from within this frame. So let us say this was int a, this was int b, and this is the float variable f. Okay, get it? So by similar logic, you could also say that within the main function, we have this int a variable. So where would this variable actually be in memory? It would be somewhere within this stack frame. Alright, that is, it is allocated memory for somewhere within this particular stack frame. Okay, so the variables are nothing but memory locations that have been given some particular name. So that is what it is. Now these variables, okay, within a particular function, these are called local variables. Okay, now whenever your function is called, I told you that the function is given some space from the stack, and that is called the stack frame. So a natural question that should arise now is what happens when a function finishes executing. I told you what happens when a function is called, but I never told you what happens when the function finishes executing. Like say suppose in this case, you call the function, then it somehow finishes its execution and returns some value that is stored in this variable. In this case, we see that it is 1 plus 2, 3. Alright? So what happens when this typical function finishes execution? The moment it finishes execution, all the memory that is allocated to this function is removed. Okay? It's removed. It's as if it was never allocated memory in the first place. And this is what the state of the program memory is after the execution of this typical function. Again, similar to what happened before. But this time round, since the typical function has finished execution, it is popped off from the stack and the value that it returned is put within this location, which is the variable a, the integer variable a. Get it? Now again, once you have done this line, this function has also finished executing. So what happens? This stack frame that was allocated to the main function is also popped off. Is popped off and the program finishes executing and this whole memory is completely removed. This whole program memory is removed from the RAM. So that's the concept of stacks, stack frames, functions, and local variables. In the next video, we shall be talking in more detail about the heap. But this is all that you need to know from the point of view of stacks. From functions and local variables. And the stack, of course.